Thank you, everybody, for attending today. We've got, looks like, people from all over the world today. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy day or morning or evening, depending on where you're at. And so let me quickly, so this is the Temperature Controls and Refrigeration with InduSoft Web Studio webinar. My name is Scott Courtier. I am Senior Technical Sales with InduSoft. And let me open up his microphone. Nicholas, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we've got Mr. Nick Hitchcock on the line with us, and he's going to be presenting about a project that they did for Hill Country Bakery. And Nick, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. So give me just a few minutes here to get my part out of the way. And so what I did is I took a look at the project and the presentation that Nick is giving, and I thought I'd add some complementary stuff on what you can do and with InduSoft and talk about different things that might complement what Nick is going to give you in part of his presentation. So we're going to talk a little bit about some temperature symbols that you can find on our websites, and talking about opening a screen using something called Mnemonics, very similar to our symbols. I'll show you how to do that. And then after Nick is all done, I'll wrap it up with additional resources and open it up to questions. So as I mentioned before we got started, for those of you who just joined us, we can't hear you on this webinar. So if you have any questions or comments, put those into the chat panel or the Q&A panel on your WebEx interface, and we'll try to get those answered during the webinar. If not, again, at the end, there is a question and answer section, so we'll try to do that. Also, we'll be sending out a survey, and we're recording this, so we'll be posting that recording and the slides in just a couple of days. And if you fill out that survey and let us know your shirt size and name and address, we'll send you a free T-shirt just for joining us today. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. And we'd love to hear from you and get your feedback and know what you'd like to see in the future. So with that, jump right in here. And, you know, this webinar is about a project that Nick and Patti Engineering took on called Hill Country Bakery. And what I thought I would point out is some things that complement what Nick has done, and possibly offer up some ideas for future use for those of you who are attending. If you're attending, don't know if it's because you attend every one of our webinars, which we absolutely love, or maybe you saw the word temperature and thought, hey, that's for me. But what I'd like to focus on is a couple, few of the symbols here that we have added in, on our website. So this particular one here on the left is for plastic injection molding is why it was developed, but it could be for anything. It could be multiple heat zones. It's almost like a PID faceplate. There's an actual temperature and a set point temperature and a control value, a percentage, and then this one is really like a PID faceplate with an output and up and down settings. And then there's a thermostat. And let me go ahead and jump into, like, somewhere I have InduSoft Web Studio running here. Let me pull this on screen and run this project here. And you can actually see that I can change the set points here, and if I hold one of these buttons down, it increments by, in this case, I think it's 5 or some set amount. And on this one, I have another set point, and I can change modes from off to heat to air conditioning and turn the fan off, on, or auto. And then I can even have a little slide out here where I can adjust the Fahrenheit versus C for the different units. So try to make it universally accepted. So that's those three symbols. Now, where can you find those? If you go to our website, let me grab the website here. It's off the screen here. And you go to the top navigation here in the store, you'll find free add-ons. And what we've been doing for a little over the last year is we've been adding a symbol of the week. So we take your suggestions and ideas and customer input and try to come up with a symbol of the week. And so you can see here some vertical LED, almost like voltage meters that you might find in an old stereo somewhere. Wind indicators, keypad entries with pop-up keypads, status list. This one I think is really neat because you don't have to configure it. You just drop it on the screen and it goes and reads all the information. It tells you all the status that you need to know about your project. Some neat gauges, an I/O module from a PLC can tell you the on and off and the label for the actual input or output. And then we've got some indicators, some clocks, things of that nature, and then all the way down to some production or some andon symbol sets. And then you start to see some of the temperature ones that we've done. And so right now you can grab these for free on our website, and here's a few more that are maybe kind of temperature related, but you can grab these off the website, put them in your project, and feel free to use them or modify them in any way. If you've got questions on how to use symbols, feel free to check out our online training or attend our training in Austin, Texas. So here, if you go to the online training videos, you'll find roughly 40 videos that'll cover all the different aspects of the product, and including the symbols. So if you want to see how to use symbols, a really good video that will talk you through on how to do that and how to use those effectively. So let me go ahead and move this off screen and go back to the PowerPoint presentation here. So those are available, just to make you aware of those. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is opening a screen with something called Mnemonics, and just what the heck does that mean? So let me open up InduSoft Web Studio development environment here, and let me add a new button onto the bottom of this screen. So I've got two screens. I've got this main screen that I'm on, and I've got this pump screen, which is a dialog box, or not a dialog box, but a pop-up type screen. And so I really only have two screens in here. And if I wanted to open up another screen, most people will simply add a button or an object or a picture and then configure it with a command animation. And by adding that command animation, I get this button with the command animation, and then I can have these different types. It could be the scripting language, or it could be an open screen or some tag set, reset toggles. But a lot of people will just use this open screen and then put the name of the screen that they want to go to, in this case, pump. That will very happily open up that pump screen. But there's a little bit more advanced way to use open. And if I go to the help system here, and I open up the built-in scripting appendix, and there's a section here for screen functions, and then the open command. You can see that the open command actually has a whole lot of parameters associated with it, and most of them, all but the first one, are optional. And if I scroll down to the bottom here, where the examples are, I can simply use this as open and then the name of the screen enclosed in quotes. But there's a lot more to it, such as the position and the size of the screen that will open. These X1, Y1, X2, Y2 are basically the coordinates of where you want that screen to open in the top left and the bottom right. So you can pretty much position that anywhere that you want to. The other option is whether or not you want it resizable, or is it going to automatically size it. So that's an option in there as well. And then going along with what I'm going to show you here is these last two parameters, which is an optional ID number or an instance number, and the mnemonic list. And this mnemonic list is basically a replacement mechanism. And by following this syntax, which is pretty much the same syntax that we use in the symbols, you can get a pretty dynamic screen and the ability to open up a screen, let's say for two different pumps. I can open up a screen for the first pump and give it an ID of 0, that's instance 0, and then pass it some tags and then have that open for pump 1. Well, then I can open up that exact same screen, but open it up as instance number 1 or number 2 or number 3, and then pass it an entirely different set of tags, and I can use and reuse that screen repeatedly for as many pumps as I have. So let me give you an example of how we did that. And again, it's just following this list here of the parameters. And so what I did here is, again, I created this pump screen, and I used those mnemonics, that same notation that was just there in the help system, and I used these inside of rectangles. I've got one here that's a recessed rectangle, and I've got one that I've turned off the border in the background. But here's that same syntax that was just shown. But again, notice that I only have one screen called pump. Well, what I do with the first button, and let me expand this for you here, is I open up the pump screen and I tell it to position it at 200, 200 X and Y. And since that screen is 400 pixels tall, I told it to be the bottom corner is 600, so I just added 400 of those. And then the next, let me go back to the next was whether or not it was going to be resizable. And oops, I clicked instead of, so this is it resizable? And then this parameter right here is the instance number. So since I'm going to open it for pump 1, I'm giving it instance 0, but then I pass it the pump name 1, and then I pass it flow rate number 1. And where I get that from is these two pieces of text that I've just added on the screen. So there's pump name 1 and flow rate 1, and then there's pump 2 and flow 2. So in the second button, I've changed that script just slightly. It's almost exactly the same, except I've changed this to a 1, and the pump name is now 2, and the flow is 2. And when I run this, what you'll see is I'll be able to open up two separate instances of that pump screen and reuse that pump screen. So right now I have this as pump name 1. I have pump 1 in here. Just to make it a little bit different, I put tank 2 pump in the second one. I've got flow rate 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. When I open this up, I get the values for number 1 and flow rate 1, and so you can see that. And when I press number 2, I'm opening up a second instance. So the first one was instance 0. This is instance 1. It's a second instance of that exact same screen, but now I pass it in the different values. And this is a way that you can be much more efficient and have to not have to create as many screens. So Nick is going to show you a different way that he's been able to bring in different screens and be efficient in that way. And I thought I'd give you kind of a heads up and a different way to do that. And I'm not sure a lot of people know how to do this and don't necessarily take advantage of it, but it can really save you a lot of time as you get working on larger and larger projects and maybe have multiple pumps or multiple temperature controllers, things of that nature. So I thought I'd give you a quick show on how to do that. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Nick.
All right. Well, thank you much, Scott and InduSoft, for having us, giving us the opportunity to share this project with your following, and appreciate that discussion about the opening screen with Mnemonics. I personally wasn't aware of it and certainly see the power of it. So I'll probably be using it in the future. With that being said, I want to dive into our project, our discussion. Who are we? Patti Engineering is a control systems integrator that was founded in 1991 up in Metro Detroit, Michigan. We're currently headquartered in Auburn Hills, Michigan. And we have offices in Austin, Texas, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Kokomo, Indiana, and a sales office in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm talking to you from the Austin office, which is actually not too far down the road from InduSoft's headquarters, which is pretty convenient for us. We're roughly 50 employees throughout the offices with about 35 degree engineers. We are CSA certified. For those of you that don't know, it's similar to like an ISO 9000 certification, but specifically for system integrators. The organization Control System Integrators Association is a trade group, an industry group of similar control system integrators that get together to discuss best practices, business trends, et cetera. And they'll actually go through and audit and certify member companies. They do an audit every 3 years or so, and we're actually coming up on our 4th consecutive audit pretty soon now. Along with that, we received from Controls Engineering Magazine the 2013 Integrator of the Year Award. We're pretty proud of that. We have been certified as an InduSoft Certified Systems Integrator since 2010. We are also partner companies with Siemens, Mitsubishi, Phoenix Contact, Matrox Imaging, and Kawasaki Robotics. Being out of Michigan, we are primarily automotive in nature, but we've done a lot of Garmin on Hook, distribution center type projects, and gotten into recently water, wastewater, food and bev, and oil and gas. As Scott said, my name is Nicholas Hitchcock. I received my bachelor's of EE from University of Michigan back in 2007. I've been working with Patti Engineering the past 7 years, and the last 5 have been down in Texas. Moved down here when we opened the branch. A senior electrical engineer and the project manager for the Texas office. I received my Texas P in 2013. Got experience working with various PLCs, HMIs, SCADA systems, industrial networks, VFDs, servos, etc. Done a lot of work with wireless, both Wi-Fi type applications as well as wireless I/O type systems. And most of my background has been in automotive applications, but I've been getting into water, wastewater, and food and bev, among other things. So we're here today to talk to you about a project that we executed for a customer of ours called Hill Country Bakery. They've been baking in San Antonio, Texas since 1997. Currently, they've got 4 plants throughout the city and a 5th facility that is a distribution center, which is used for their cold storage. All of their raw ingredients and their baked goods are stored there before they ship out to their customers. For Hill Country Bakery, quality is their number one focus. They have earned the SQF 2000 Level 2 certification. That's a safe quality food certification, and they work hard to keep it. And this project of temperature logging works towards maintaining that certification. So we're happy to help them maintain their quality. Issues with their previous system. It was all manual. It was a hardwired system of temperature sensors throughout the plants. It required a lot of manpower to log the data, keep track of it. This opened up for errors and mistyping or misplacing paperwork, and all the paperwork is certainly hard to go through and mine data when the SQF audit comes around or if a customer needs specific temperature data. In addition to that, all the hardwired sensors are actually prone to damage. The fork trucks and moving around shelving units and product was actually breaking the cables that were pulled, so they were having downtime due to that. So all this extra sneak-aware, more effort required to mine the data, and then the issues with the hardware were all catalysts for getting us to execute our project. Our goals for the project was to create an automated system for logging temperatures in the various zones throughout the building. We wanted to generate reports, generate alarms and warnings. They don't have an operator constantly looking at the system the way an HMI on a machine would normally be used. So email alarms were a must to let people know about impending issues. Wireless sensors was something that we were going for to avoid any downtime due to cable breaks. We also wanted to be able to quickly develop this solution as well as maintain a tight budget. So why InduSoft? From all years of working with InduSoft, we knew that we could quickly develop projects within it. Much quicker turnaround time than developing something in C# or Visual Basic, what have you. Database connectivity, logging temperatures to the database, and using SQL to query the data out for reports was a very convenient option. Remote access via web. This facility is on the other side of town from the people who typically need the data, so being able to access the data remotely from their intranet was certainly a positive. Generating reports. I actually used some sample applications as a seed project for generating the actual physical report. Alarming, like I said, the email notification to let people know that stuff is out of spec. And low price point. It was a small project. There's only 10 or so temperature zones, so getting a big SCADA system is not really what we needed. We were able to keep the price point low based off of the licensing model that InduSoft has to offer. But at the same time, they keep it rather expandable. We can easily increase the number of tags we need if we want to grow the system. We're actually in the middle of talking with them to add a couple of more sensors to the system. For the wireless sensors, we work with a company called FreshLock. They offer a wide range of sensors from temperature, humidity, vibration, etc. They also have various interfaces, but we ended up going with a Modbus TCP interface for their transceivers. If you need more information on them, you can find them at freshlock.com. Coincidentally, they're also redistributed by Schneider as well. So something that really tied this project together for us was the drivers that InduSoft has to offer. They've got a wide selection covering a wide selection of PLCs, sensors, power meters, etc. They got Ethernet and serial-based drivers and many different field buses, Modbus, CAN bus, BACnet, etc. Being able to use a Modbus TCP driver right within InduSoft allowed us to greatly simplify this project. We were able to bypass the need for a PLC or middleware software like an OPC. So that greatly reduced cost, development time. It simplified the whole overall system. Less things to break, less things to train the customer on, etc. If you aren't familiar with the wide range that they've got to offer, coming over into the engineering environment, coming comms and drivers, we can add and remove drivers as needed. And I got everything from Allen Bradley to Siemens to BACnet. Most anything you want to talk to, InduSoft can do that. And it's pretty simple to set up communication right to the sensors. I was talking right to the Modbus TCP devices directly. So very convenient and brought all this together and simplify everything. So very powerful there. So as you already saw quickly, the InduSoft application, this is the screenshot of the runtime system. It had an overview of the distribution center, a breakdown of each of the temperature zones. I have the color code set up for changing the colors of each box as different events happen. When you have an active alarm, a past alarm, warning, you disable faults, etc. There's a report screen for interacting with the system to pull out data as needed. The alarm screen, historical and current alarms. It generates email notifications as needed and allows operators to enter comments as they acknowledge alarms. Set points, the screen used to, in the runtime, change the temperature settings for the alarm thresholds as needed. I'll real quickly go over the reports. I was running a local runtime of it. I'm not tied into their database, so I took some screenshots of the report so you can get a feel for what that was, and I'll switch over and walk you through the actual runtime. So going to the report screen, we've got a trend view of each of the temperature zones, color-coded to match the key down below. The checkboxes allow you to hide or show individual temperature zones, and you have a start and end date and time entry, so you can filter the data as you need. The picture on the right shows you a filter view just looking at the individual freezers. As you can see, the grid object, the additional zones that you don't care about disappear. the access on the left-hand side for the temperature automatically scales. There's also a report button to generate a HTML file that I'm hosting within a browser right within the runtime. I used, like I said, a sample application that I got off the website that had a lot of procedures set up for generating the HTML code. I reused some of the functions as is, tweaked some of the other ones, and created some new ones as I needed. So anytime you look and see how to do something, the sample application is a great place to go and check it out and see if it's been done before and if you can tweak it, something to fit your needs specifically. These are some screenshots of the PDF report that I printed out from that filter. I'm actually taking a screenshot of the trend view and embedding it in the file, create a table of date time as well as the temperatures for each of the zones you want to look at, as well as a filter of that time range of any faults that occurred. So switching back to the runtime, like I said, I'm not tied into the actual system, but I can show you the individual temperature zones based off of different events end up getting a different color. I can simulate a high temperature in a particular zone, and you'll see that a blinking red light occurs in that zone. We can come to the alarms, and we see that we have an active, unacknowledged alarm. Selecting that alarm, we can acknowledge it. One of the requests from the customer was to require users to enter a comment for why the alarm was happening. So this pull-down menu is actually used. If I was tied into their database, you could see a listing of typical fault reasons, but you could also select custom and then enter into the text box field a custom comment. Once you've done that, press acknowledge. It will acknowledge the alarm. If I'd entered a comment, it would show up here. Coming back to the main screen, you can see it's now solid red, meaning an active acknowledged alarm. And once the temperature goes back to normal, the color code does as well. That temperature alarm is now down in the historical alarms. By default, the historical alarm viewer shows the past 24 hours, but modifying some of the properties, you can set custom filters, which is what I've done down here for start and end date times. I can show you how to do that shortly. The set point screen is where I've got set up to modify in the runtime the alarm thresholds. You can change the alarm and the warning settings as well as enable and disable individual zones. If you disable a zone, it stops the alarms emails from going out and the alarms from happening. It does get marked on the overview screen so you know it's disabled, and there's a timeout set up to prevent you from forgetting about this. You'd use this if the sensor or something went bad or you need to replace a sensor. You can avoid any nuisance alarms. We'll also have alarms set up for timeouts for each of the sensors and readers since we are dealing with wireless technology. The log-on button is to log in. I have the system tied into their Active Directory system, so the users throughout their company can just use their typical domain credentials to log in, get their rights that they should have, and then either be allowed to change set points, be blocked from that, be allowed to acknowledge faults, etc. So that's an overview of the runtime. The alarm viewer, I said I was going to come back to under graphics, alarms. in the history and filters, you can actually select the period of start to finish date. And I've got these tags generated based off of inputs from these modules. A couple other things I wanted to point out. If you weren't aware, under the alarms, you end up hard coding limits for the fault levels. You can modify this in runtime by adjusting parameters of the tags themselves. Coming back to the graphics and set points, I'll do a temperature. I just got a text box entry. If you double click on that, rather than having a tag here, I've got a property of the tag. So the tag is here. The dash greater than sign indicates a property, and this high limit is a property of this tag, which correlates to this setting right here. So there's a high, low, etc. There's also a alarm disable property, which is how I'm blocking the alarms, and that blocks all alarms associated with that particular tag. What else? Let me come back to the presentation. I wanted to share a couple of methods and tools that I used in the development of this. In general, I'm pretty lazy. I like to think of my job as an automation engineer as making other people lazy, and I like to make myself lazy as possible. I don't like redoing stuff over and over again. If it can be done once, that's much better. So a couple of tools and processes that I used for this project were class tags, procedures, screen groups, and template screens. Class tags, it's a definition of a structure of tags. So rather than having a simple tag such as a bool or an integer or a string, what have you, you can create a structure, define it in one place, and then reuse it multiple times. It's easy to array it and can be reused for multiple reasons. If you don't know where to handle that, under global, you got your project tags, you can define that. Just below that are classes. And some of these classes I had set up just for structures that I used one time, like the report structure. I guess just for organizational purposes. But something like the sensor, I've actually got multiple class tags, one for each sensor out there in the field. But these are subcomponents of that tag. The tick is a watchdog, the actual temperature, the zone status, which indicates the color code on the main screen, etc. So you define this in one place, and then within the project tags, you simply define doc1 sensor, call it a type C sensor, and now there are tags for doc1 sensor, dot, and temperature, zone status, etc. So if something changes, you need to add more to the structure, take something away, all you simply do is modify it here and it's taken care of. You don't have to delete or add tags for each one of these instances. So a great way to save time and minimize mistakes. Next up are procedures. Procedures in general are just, or what script is called within InduSoft. Sometimes they're single-use functions, but anytime you find yourself typing the same code over and over again with just tweaks of which tag you're using, what have you, it's a good candidate for breaking that section of code off into its own function and then passing in inputs and properties into that. Speeds development time, It reduces chances of mistake. If you're copying, pasting a bunch of times and then changing tag names, the more you have to change, the more chances are for mistakes. So this is an example of a script I wrote that, based off of the individual properties of the alarms that are active, I change the status of, change the integer value, the status of that zone. So it lives one place, but change one place and it gets proliferated throughout the project. Screen groups, this is what Scott was referring to earlier. Essentially, I've broken down the entire runtime into two different sections. The navigation bar up ahead, or up above, and then the body. This body changes as you navigate through, but this portion of the screen actually does not change and is always up and active. As you see, if you look under graphics, the header screen is just the navigation, and then the main is everything below that. That's not what I wanted to do. As you're pushing the navigation buttons, simply open up the next screen on top of the previous one, and it replaces and closes out the other guy. This allows you to only have to modify this portion once, rather than if you'd built this navigation bar onto the same screen. Every time you make a change to the navigation bar, add a button, change a property, or a script or something, you'd have to do it on every single one. This is very similar in concept to frames within HTML, if you're familiar with that concept. A couple of things to point out, though, for that. It does require a little bit more attention. Coming back to the header screen, if you look at the screen attributes, it's 1024 pixels wide and 156 pixels high, and the location is 0, 0. That means that in the runtime window, the upper left-hand corner is at pixel 0, 0, which by definition is the upper left-hand corner. If you come and look at the main, those screen attributes, you have to offset the location. It's 1024 wide, matching the banner across the top, and then it's 612 high. The top, though, rather than being at 0, is at 156. So since it's 156 high, pixels start at 0. This is 1 pixel right below the bottom of the navigation bar. This replace partial style, as opposed to the pop-up that he mentioned before, is a property that simplifies your changing of screens. Rather than having to open and close a different screen, you just open a screen, and if anything covers the screen partially, the screen will close out. So if you look in the header, as he pointed out before, I'm simply doing a open screen function for the command. But that would open that screen and close out the next one. When you then open up reports, it will launch the report screen and close out the other screens. So another way to keep you from having to repeat something over and over again. Another technique I used is template screens. It's not actually a tool within InduSoft, but more of a process that I use. When I define the layout or look or feel of a system, I end up making a blank screen that's got all of my base properties, background colors, screen attributes, scripts, etc., already set up and formatted as desired. When I need a new screen, I simply open that screen in InduSoft. So in this case, this body screen is my template. I open it up and do a save as. I'll just call it new screen. I still have the body, so I can still keep redoing that. And I now have new screen. And at this point, I can start making changes as I need. Oops, I misspelled that. This saves you the hassle of starting from a blank screen and redoing the background colors multiple times, screen attributes, etc. Also saves you from, if I did this with the main screen, I'd have to do a save as and then keep deleting all this stuff. So just a technique I like to use, saves a bit of time. And that's about all I had to cover. Scott, you want to take it back?
Nick, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good, good. On this morning's webinar, I had my headset muted, and I was talking for about a minute before everybody realized that they couldn't hear me. So, Nick, thank you very much. I learned something new. I won't tell everybody on the call what I learned, but you know, I'll tell you what. Working with InduSoft, I think I learned something new about the product every day, and I've been dealing with it for 16, 17 years now. So it's a pretty cool product, I think. But Nick, thank you for your presentation. Just for everybody out there, we're going to open it up to questions now. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat panel or the Q&A panel, and we'll get those answered. Nick, I'm going to put one out there for you is colors. I know we covered this in this morning's webinar, but I'd like to talk a little bit about how did you pick the color scheme? Did the customer ask you to pick that colors? Did you define it? And then after you get done, I'm going to talk a little bit about some trends that we're seeing in colors. So how did you choose the color scheme?
Sure. It was not mandated from the customer, but I did kind of steal from them. I was going to their website to grab some logos and stuff to pull into my software, and found the color scheme, and I liked it. It was pretty clean and flat, and went with it. So as you can see, this is their website. It's very similar. I actually have the same Baking with a Difference, high-quality baked goods right on my system as well, and not identical, but similar navigation bar across the top, and then try to keep with the same color scheme. So it wasn't mandated, but I did take from their lead. Something you asked about this morning that I'll just show without being prompted. So I pulled the logo right in, but something you can do when doing stuff like that is custom colors. So if you weren't aware, let me open up that header. If you're modifying the color, you actually have this custom colors, and you can add or import it, but when you add, you can actually do the eyedropper and select from the logo and pull right in to match the same color schemes. So just a convenient tool to try and match stuff easier than trying to find the exact code that you need. You can just eyedropper it as needed.
Great. Thank you. You know, one of the reasons why I asked you about that, first of all, is thank you for showing the adding the custom colors, because that is where I was headed, and I appreciate you doing that. But you know, one of the questions that we get from customers is, how do I, you know, keep things consistent and look good, and what do you have as recommendations? If I could have you open up your main screen for a second, and I wanted to compliment you on this. Is, you know, you could have very easily imported an AutoCAD drawing of their building there, and I think that would have been overkill. We're seeing some trends now that are minimalizing what you see on the screen. I know we've got a pretty good-sized customer that almost their entire screen set is grayscale. And the only time that you really see colors is when there's something that needs to be identified or there's a problem. Then they highlight it in red or flash it or whatever the case is. So this is a trend that we're starting to see, and to get the information out, the employees or whoever's looking at this screen, they know the layout of their building, and I think you're gonna see that they're more than happy with this screen. So the next thing that I wanted to cover is you had mentioned doing HTML reports, and I wanted to just quickly show a screen, a project that I did. So I'm going to take presentation status back from you here. All right, Nick, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to bring InduSoft Web Studio in. And here's a sample of a project that I did as a kind of a test. And what I did is, and I didn't look at your project in this detail, but I think it's very similar to what you're doing. What I did is I actually have a report, and our reports in this case are text-based. And what I did is I just put HTML in here. And I also took this another step further, and on the screen I have a trend, and I'll run this in a second and show you how this works. But in the trend object, under advanced, I gave it a way to name the trend, and then when I trigger this tag, it outputs this file. And then if I go back to the report, basically I then take that picture, that JPEG, and embed it in the HTML. So if I go ahead and run this, and go here, I think I'm doing kind of similar to what you were doing. I'm going to use a recipe to bring in the customer name. So let's bring in Big Cow here. And so we've got Big Cow Farms and build to and a ship to. And I'm going to get some trend data in here. So I'm going to slide this slider up and down and get some information in this trend. And then when I export this, now these are all done with buttons, but this could be done automatically behind the scenes. I just exported that, and now I print the report. That generated that HTML report, and then what I'm going to do is use this selector here and go, and I don't know if I showed you this, but I embedded the date and the time in the name of my file so that every one of them is unique. And here's that file that I just did. It imported that trend. If we go back to our runtime here, somewhere is our runtime. No, that was already in it. So here's the runtime with those values, and then you can see that actual report in there. So go back to the report here, and so again, there's the output, and so that can generate a really nice looking report out of that. So let me go back into the report just to show. I put a tag name in here that's the bill name or the bill of lading, and then I appended an underscore, the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, the second, .html at the end. So that's how I embedded that in there. So for those of you who have that type of question, that's how I've done that before. We did have another question here. Let me see if I can get back to presentation window here. And sorry, got to get the chat panel open and the Q&A panel. Okay, the question that came in is, how do you put the start and end date of a trace on archived data? Nick, this might be a question for you because I think you actually have this in your project. Can you show how you put the start and the end date in at the bottom of your project? Is that something you can show?
Sure. I think I understand the question, so I'll answer it, and then we'll see if
you had that in your filtering for the report.
Yeah,
I think that was the question.
Sure. So this is a trend view object. Double-click it to get the properties, and under the axis, this is where you define the axis down below. So you have the scale for the y-axis is your, that's not the right one. That's defined off of here. This is your start date. for the x-axis, and then a duration, and that will be this date, and then over here is adding to the duration. That's how you get that to show up onto here. As Scott showed earlier, I was doing just like you said. I was creating a PNG on a trigger of a name, and what that actually does is this whole trend object, there's a screenshot taken, generated as a PNG, and then I embed that into HTML. The case that hasn't actually answered the question yet, the way I actually generate those tags, I've got these objects, and these are .NET controllers. Coming into the properties of it, there's actually a lot of properties in these, so it's easy to scroll right past it. If I find it.
I think it's down below.
If you end up putting a tag into the proper property, and then you do have to do a bit of,
there you go,
right here. So this is going to be a value of the date time selected from there, and then in the background in the script you do have to do a bit of formatting in order to get the date from here, the time from here, append it in the right format. You think that answered everything there?
I think that's where I would have gone. So hopefully that answered the customer's question. We've had another question come in, and I'm gonna take a stab at it, and then I'm gonna ask the same question of you, to give you your perspective on it as well. The question is, you mentioned using a SQL database. Did you implement a new server or use an existing one from the customer, and what do you typically see? I personally, having been involved in quite a few applications, I've seen a lot of different things, and I see, unfortunately, a lot of people trying to use Microsoft Access as a database because it's a little less daunting, a little less cumbersome, maybe not cumbersome, but they think they know it a little bit better. And the problem is when you get a good amount of data into Access, it slows down, and they think it's cheap or free. And what I've recommended to a lot of people, and they've been very thankful, is that Microsoft has Microsoft SQL Server Express, and it actually is free, unlike Microsoft Access that you have to pay for with Microsoft Office. SQL Server Express is free and a whole lot faster when you get a lot of data in it. So those are some of the things that I've seen, and we've tied into both existing databases and then created new. So Nick, do you have a comment on what you've seen? Did you tie into the existing database or?
Sure. For this specific project, we tied into an existing database. We tend to always use MS SQL as opposed to Access or something else. There's more power to it. But so this customer had its own database already set up, or its own server set up, and I just added a new database to it to log the data, log the alarms, log a couple other things, and then also like that alarm, typical alarm code was a table that I queried in order to get those. So as they wanted to add them, they could just modify the database there. But just as often as using customers' existing servers, we also do, we've done SQL Express quite a bit as well. So it's a bit to the customer preference, but we go both ways.
Thanks. Okay, so still looking for additional questions if there are any. In the meantime, what I'd like to show you is, I'm not sure if Nick mentioned it this afternoon or not, but in this morning he mentioned grabbing some of our sample applications that we have on our website. So if you go into our website and just go into products and downloads, Nick, can you see this now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. We can go into products and downloads and go to sample applications, and you can see all the different sample applications that we can have that are free to download and available for you to take a look at. So here we have everything from alarms, how to access data, trending, reporting. So good examples on all kinds of things. So let me get that out of the way. And I also wanted to point out that also on the website we have a case study that we've done on this application for Hill Country Bakery with Patti Engineering. So you can go to our marketing page here, go to case studies, and you can grab any of the case studies that we have. But here's a good example of this case study. So you can go on there and you can grab the download the PDF of it, or just read it online here, so you can see how Patti Engineering implemented that and Nick implemented that. I'd like to take the time while I'm going through this and thank Patti Engineering and Nick for taking the time to do this. I've known Sam Huff, the president. I think he's the president. He may have handed that over to Patti, actually, his wife. But I've known Sam since the early 90s, even before he started Patti Engineering. So a real good group of guys. Spent some time with them and really enjoyed working with them. So they're one of our certified system integrators. And if you take a look at our integrator list here, our certified integrator list, you can take a look and find Patti Engineering on this list. So I'd like to, again, thank everybody for Patti Engineering for allowing Nick and to show off Hill Country Bakery here. Also, I wanted to point out, and I think I pointed this out earlier, but again, here, if you go to the store, free add-ons, you can get to the symbol of the week, and we add these roughly weekly. So take a look at those, and feel free to download any of those that you want to. So let's see. Let me go take a quick look at the questions panel here and see if there's any new questions. And no new questions there. How about the chat panel? And nope, all good there. Nick, real quick, because I noticed that you used a lot of the techniques that we teach in the training class. Did you attend the training class in Austin, or do our online videos, or how did you learn InduSoft?
Both, actually. A number of years ago, when I first moved down to Texas, I did take what was supposed to be a week-long course, but I was the only one in it, so it kind of got accelerated to a couple of days. I hit all the highlights and got a good introduction into InduSoft from that. But then, as it usually goes in our industry, took the course, and then it was a number of years before I used it again. So I jumped on the website, got familiar with all the training videos, which, like you said before, cover most anything you'd want to do. And then with us being in Austin, I have a pretty good relationship with some of the guys at the headquarters down there, as well as just using the general tech helpline. So you guys have plenty of resources to pick this stuff up from.
Good. Thanks. Glad to see. Looks like you're using it effectively anyway, so thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other questions here. So it's right about the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and end the webinar. Nick, and for everybody at Patti Engineering, we'd like to extend our thanks. Thank you again, and I'd like to extend our thanks for everybody joining us today. Had a good turnout, and hopefully this was useful. Again, we're recording this, and we'll be posting this online shortly, within the next day or two, and sending out a survey, and let us know how we're doing and what you'd like to see in future webinars. So, Nick, thank you again.
Not a problem. Thanks for having us.